Oh, wait, real quick.
Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. By the end of this episode, please remember to subscribe, give a rating, and a review. On this podcast, we usually focus on communication skills, both at work and in our personal lives. But my guest today, Maja Miller, is here to talk to us about how our bodies communicate with us. So we are going to delve more into internal communication and why, as we have been discussing, stress, burnout, why the causes of those are. And before I go any further, please help me welcome Maja to the show. Hi, Maja.
Hello, it's so nice to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited because not only are you going to help us with what we've externally looked at as factors that cause burnout and stress, but internally, how we are causing those as well and what we can do about them. But before we get into that, please introduce yourself.
So my name is Maja Miller, and I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. What does that even mean? It's just a fancy way of saying that I run clinical labs. So I will take stool samples, blood samples, hair samples, saliva samples, and run a whole host of diagnostic kind of clinical labs to figure out what is going on in your body. Most of the clients that I work with have seen around 12 doctors. They're experiencing things like anxiety, depression, insomnia, gas, bloating, lack of energy, lack of libido, skin issues. They go to their doctors say, oh, all of your labs are fine, or, oh, it's just part of being older, or this is a part of being a woman. And they know that those symptoms aren't normal. So they come to see me. I run my own labs. I use functional ranges versus clinical ranges. And that's really important to understand the difference between that. And then those labs kind of paint a picture of what is happening in all of the systems in your body. And then I use those clinical lab results to create tailored bio-individual protocols that reverse your symptoms so that you have the energy that you need in order to, slay your day, run your company, manage your family. Because, the clients that I work with are playing really big in life. They're trying to live a life filled with possibilities. And you can't do that when your body, is really failing you and not working in an optimal way.
That is very true. I mean, we've always said that, health is number one. When everything else is done, your body is number one because it's what does the work. But when I'm listening to what you just said, what is wrong with just telling you, Maja, just go and eat healthy and exercise?
So that's probably one of the cringiest things I can hear is eat less and move more, because it's so vague and it's built on this theory of that really looks at how systems operate in a perfect environment. And I don't know about you, but my life isn't a perfect environment. There are stressors. There are physical stressors, there are biochemical stressors, there are emotional stressors that change and impact your metabolism. And how you feel today, right, is a result of all of your past decisions. So I always like to say that your biography, all of the things that have happened in the past, create your biology at what is happening at a cellular level in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that they've actually put themselves through significantly more stress than they think. They think a stress is, okay, my boss is being a jerk, or I lost my job, or my kid,
Yeah, like it's
emotional
the
stressors.
external stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's also biochemical stressors. Do you have a parasite? Are you drinking alcohol? Have you taken over-the-counter drugs like Tylenol, like Advil, like Benadryl? Have you taken a lot of antibiotics? Are you sleeping well? Those are all biochemical stressors. And then you have physical stressors. Do you have poor posture? Do you over exercise? Those are all physical stressors. And all of those stressors do the exact same thing. They tell your body, your adrenals, which are these like tiny little organs that sit on top of your kidneys. So you have two of them. They're tiny, but they are very, very mighty. They control so many things. And one of the things that they do is push out cortisol in the body. Well, cortisol in small amounts is very, very good, but in large amounts, so long-term, prolonged, acute long-term stress, cortisol actually is a catabolic hormone, which means it breaks you down at a cellular level. So if you are now 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, you've had a lot of experience with those three kinds of stressors that I explained: the physical, the biochemical, and the emotional stressors. Now your body is literally breaking down at a cellular level, and your metabolism is impacted. So somebody in a crashed, adrenal dysfunction state, or a tired and wired adrenal dysfunction state, is going to need different exercise and also probably some different kinds of foods to help heal them. So to circle this back to your original point, which is, eat less, move more. Eat less of what? Move how? Move when? Well, that depends. That depends on your biography and how you are within what stage of adrenal dysfunction that you're in. And so for me, I am like allergic to cookie cutter plans. And often, it depends. Keto for one client might work really well.
I was
For
about to
another
ask
client,
you,
yeah, for another
sometimes
client,
they
you
say,
may.
go vegan, go vegetarian, go keto, go, the carnivore.
Yeah,
Somebody
so
probably saying something on YouTube. What am I supposed to do if I'm sitting at home and trying to figure out what is wrong with me?
And I think the answer is it depends. There is a place for a keto diet. It's not long term, that's for sure. There is a place for a carnivore diet. A lot of my clients with autoimmune disease, which is highly tied to gut health, there is a place for that. It's not long term. I personally believe that a vegan or a vegetarian diet only works for a very small percentage of the population.
If it's
And
long-term, eternal, that's what I'm gonna stick to.
yeah,
Something you can do
so
temporary as well.
you put the wrong person on a keto diet, and they're having to have their gallbladder removed, which helps them process fats. You put the wrong person on a vegetarian diet, and they're going to have neurological symptoms like multiple sclerosis. So it all depends. And I have had clients that have come to me. They've been, vegan for 15 years. They've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We put them on an animal-based diet, and all of their MS symptoms have gone away. Did they really have MS to
But
begin
their
with?
specific body composition is not tailor-made for that particular diet.
It's because you get, so you people, some people may have heard of macronutrients. It's your proteins, your proteins, your carbohydrates, and your fats. And you need them in larger quantities. That's why they're called macronutrients. Those macronutrients get broken down into micronutrients. You need them in smaller quantities. These are your vitamins, your minerals, your amino acids, your essential fatty acids. Those micronutrients are the cofactors and enzymes and things that you need in order for your cells to produce energy. It's the ATP, the Krebs cycle, right?
Yes.
And so if you are eating the wrong macronutrient ratio, then you, for your particular body type, for your particular tribe, for your particular set of circumstances, then you are going to get the wrong micronutrients, which means you don't have the fuel for your cells to produce energy. So if you have a brain cell that doesn't have the energy, right, to produce energy, you're going to have neurological symptoms. If you have, and so it's really important to understand that these cookie cutter programs rarely work for people that have at least experienced a significant amount of stress. When you're like 19, 20 in your high school, and you would think, oh, I need to lose a couple of pounds in college, just thinking about it, you lost the weight came off really easily. But I bet you that a lot of your listeners are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
46. And
yep. And
what happened
things
to me? I used to eat cake and it wouldn't even show on my waistline.
Exactly. That's exactly correct, right? So your circumstances are and your environment is different. And so you need to take all of that into account. So I never, prescribe a certain diet without understanding what's going on with detoxification, what's going on with liver, what's going on with gut, what's going on with hormones, what's going on with mineral balance. You really need to have that full picture of what's happening in the body so that we can kind of create these protocols that tell you the right thing to do at the right time in the right order. Because yes, sometimes, you're doing the right thing, but at the wrong time, and you're not going to see the results. So a lot of that is, that's kind of my take on the whole, like, eat less, move more, eat less of what, move more how and when.
You always get to a healthy diet. Just eat healthy and exercise. Eat healthy and exercise.
And a lot of people, like, for example, when we teach what we need to learn. And so for me, the reason that I'm in this line of work is because in my 20s, I was very sick. I had an autoimmune disease, anxiety, depression, irritable bowel syndrome. I was getting Xanax for the anxiety, another pill for the IBS. I mean, and at the end of the day, I still had all of my symptoms. It would have been one thing if those things actually like fixed what was going on. And, I thought I was living in California. I had a very kind of high stress corporate Fortune 5 job. I was traveling, 75% of the time. I was very disconnected from family and friends. And I was eating, I thought healthy, right? Quote unquote. I was eating sushi probably 3 or 4 times a week. And when I finally worked with a functional medical practitioner, we tested my mercury levels and I was in the 95th percentile for mercury toxicity. And two of the biggest, symptoms of mercury poisoning are anxiety and depression. And so, I was eating healthy. I was eating a lot of sashimi. I was eating raw fish,
Which is
and
protein, fish protein.
Fish protein.
It's
healthy.
That group as well is taking care of you. Think, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. So it turns out that it's not healthy to eat that much tuna and salmon because of the environmental impact that we have, on our oceans and our fish right now. And so, what does healthy mean? I think a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. And it's very difficult in the United States because the US government does not protect us. The EPA does not protect us from, garbage in the water. And I'm not just talking about cities like Flint, Michigan that have been in the news for, poor water quality. If you go to, I believe it's EWG.com, it's the Environmental Working Group, and you can put in your zip code for your tap water. I have, I believe, 12 cancer-causing agents in my water in Austin, Texas, that are above EWG levels. And so if you are, for example, not filtering your water, you are getting.
How filter jugs work? I'm worried now because.
Well, so there are certain filters that work, and there are certain filters that don't work. Our water processing plants today do not filter out pharmaceuticals. So every woman in the United States that's taking a hormonal birth control is going to the bathroom. Those hormones are in the urine. It goes into the water. It's not filtered out. And then we drink that again in our water. So, for example, I have a filter at my sink for our drinking water, and I recommend a whole home filter because water, all of those chemicals can get in through the steam in your shower. You inhale chlorine, fluoride, which is a neurotoxin, by the way. You inhale this, you absorb it through your skin, and then you drink it. These are tiny things that you're doing every single day, right? Every single day we're taking a shower. Every single day we're cooking with water from our tap. Every single day we're either drinking, bottled water, which is filled with microplastics, and all sorts of chemicals.
And under the illusion of, because it's bottled, it's better.
Under the illusion that if it's bottled, it's better. And so all of these things, for example, are endocrine disruptors. These pharmaceuticals, these plastics, they are obesogenic. They mimic an estrogen in the body. So we don't even understand that, right? So many of us have very high level estrogen levels. Well, when women have very high certain estrogen levels, oftentimes they get breast cancer, right? So we look at our cancer rates in the United States. Yeah. So, even something as simple as drinking water, I work with my clients to say, okay, well, what is the quality of your water? What is the source of your water? Is it well water? Is it city water? And so you can, you would think that in the United States, this is not like a third world country where we would have like the EPA, some sort of environmental agencies protecting us. But the reality is that we don't. Yeah.
Can I ask you to pause on that? Speaking of third world countries, I come from South Africa, considered a third world country. Minute Maid orange juice. When I remember, it used to be one of my favorites. You literally could taste there was pulp in the juice. It was pure oranges, hardly any sugar. I came to the US. My friend said to me, "This is not the same Minute Maid." I said, "What are you talking about? The sugar content is so high." She made me read the labels. Now I read labels at the back, something I hardly did back home. And there's no pulp. I don't think there's much orange juice to begin with. It tastes very different. When you say that there's no protection for the consumers here and the way that they change the food, why do you think that is? And they change it for the worst, so to speak.
I mean, I think it comes down to big business, politics, and money. You've got, I believe there's something like 2 or 3 food companies that control like 95% of all of the brands that are out there. So you've got, big food, you've got big agriculture, big ag, you've got big beauty, you've got big government. You've got these really big lobbying groups that are acting in the best interest of the business unit, which is, high margins, low price, higher prices.
Quality of the food. So
yeah. And so
with the formula they used in South Africa, which was original oranges, when it gets here, they suddenly stop the oranges.
They literally have 2 different formulations. So if you look at French fries from McDonald's in the United States, there's over 20 ingredients that are in French fries. If you go to the UK, there are 3, maybe 4 ingredients: oil, salt, potatoes, maybe a little bit of cornstarch or something like that. But in the United States, there's over 20 ingredients. And a lot of these ingredients are chemicals that are flavors that they put into the food that are meant to impact the pleasure center of your brain. So you are literally being biohacked by these countries, or by these food companies. And the United States doesn't do anything about that, right? So in the UK, in the European Union, I believe there's something like 1,800 chemicals that are forbidden to be put into, consumer good products, your lotions, your toothpaste, the products that we use every day on our bodies. In the United States, those 1,800 chemicals, many of them cancer causing. I mean, like talc, for example. You heard Johnson and Johnson,
Johnson and Johnson, the lawsuit, yes.
and they were targeting, initially they started targeting minority communities, African American mothers, Hispanic mothers. I mean, it's egregious what is happening. I mean, these things were being put on our babies, on our children. I mean, and so Johnson and Johnson is a perfect example of that. The reality is, we could talk about that for probably, 6 hours. The reality is like, if you don't know that this is the environment in which you're swimming in, right? This toxic swimming pool of like messed up water and chemicals and, all these things, you may think that you are being healthy when in reality, you are making very, very bad decisions for you and your family. And this,
all these ingredients that you don't know that your body is taking in, because you just think, oh, it's
you think
fries.
it's healthy. Yeah, you think it's fine. You think it's healthy, and then these companies, you think, oh, range-free eggs, range-free chickens. Okay, well, that's very different than pasture raised. There's this constant new marketing terms. Grass fed used to be grass fed, but now what they're doing is feeding them a little bit of grass, for cattle, for example, and then finishing them off with a bunch of grains. Grains kill cattle. If cows were allowed to live as long as their natural lives were, and they were fed a grain diet, they would die. They are meant to eat grasses. So now I have to look for grass-fed and finished cattle for, my meat.
We cannot keep up. This is too much.
You can't keep up with it. You can't keep up with it.
And we have so much stress as well. And speaking of, okay, back to the hormone discussion. When you talk about cortisol, you mentioned anxiety and depression. Now, before we get into that, as I was saying earlier, before we started recording that, I remember sometimes when you go on social media and people are discussing this, and somebody would say, oh, you know what? I exercised and I did this and I ate healthy and I was on less medication for depression and anxiety. And then somebody said, don't you dare. This is medical. It's got nothing to do with diet. What is it about depression and anxiety that you feel like people are not understanding yet? Because, like I said, a lot of people say it's got nothing to do with diet. It's a medical issue.
So that's interesting. Have you heard of Hippocrates? So I think it was around, I don't know, 450, 460 BC. He was a Greek philosopher. Yeah. He's considered the father of medicine. Mm-hmm. And he said, let food be thy medicine. And what did he say? He said, let food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be thy food, is what he said. Mm-hmm. So this is the father of like modern medicine. Yeah. Let food be thy medicine and let thy medicine be thy food. So the things that we put in our bodies every single day, right? What we put in our bodies, what we put on our bodies is very important, and it is medical. The food that you eat is medical. And often, and we know that, your gut, another word for it is the microbiome, your kind of your microbiome, your gut, everything from your mouth all the way to your anus, that whole system. Right. That's where we eat our macronutrients, our proteins, fats, and carbs. In the small intestine and large intestine, starting in the mouth, but really, in the stomach, those macronutrients start getting broken up into micronutrients. Those micronutrients start getting absorbed in the small intestine and the large intestine. And those micronutrients are like what program your cells to have enough energy, right? Every cell has mitochondria. It's like the power plant of each cell, and it produces energy so that a liver cell can be a liver cell. So a brain cell can be a brain cell, right? So that a skin cell can be a
mitosis, meiosis.
Yeah. So we need energy from macronutrients in order to get micronutrients, our vitamins, our minerals, our amino acids, our essential fatty acids, so that our cells have the things that they need in order to work. And so we know that whole system is very, very important. 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. You have more neurological cells than you in your gut than you do in your entire spinal column. They say that your gut is your second brain. It's incredibly important. And so, and the kinds of foods that you put in your gut can inflame your gut, can cause an immune response in your gut. And so if you are eating, healthy animal, grass-fed, grass-finished, and animal products, organic fruits and vegetables, if you're eating whole foods, if you're not eating factory created foods, these like random like granola bars and, frozen foods, frozen pizzas, all of these drinks, if you're not eating those kinds of things, then you're going to have a healthier gut. And we know that this gut lining, right? These they're called epithelial cells. They are identical to the cells that that create your blood-brain barrier. So your gut has this line of cells that protects the very delicate internal world from a very toxic external world. That same barrier exists in your brain. It's a very important blood-brain barrier. You don't want the things that are like in your blood or toxins or anything like that to get into your brain for obvious reasons, right? It's the supercomputer in your body. And so we know that if you have gut permeability or leaky gut, you oftentimes have something called leaky brain. And that is where a lot of these neurological symptoms, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, all of these things have now been highly linked to, gut health, parasites, bacterial overgrowth, a lack of exercise. I mean, one of the top things that you can do in order to address anxiety and depression is to move your body and to have sun exposure, daily sunlight.
Right.
So we, unfortunately, we have kind of created this environment in the United States where we think that like doctors have the solutions. Doctors don't have the solution. If they did, we wouldn't have a population, 80, 85% are obese or overweight, 20, 30% have been diagnosed with autoimmune disease, type 2 diabetes. Yeah, I mean, we have one of the sickest populations in the world. So if modern medicine was doing such a bang up job, if they were doing such a good job, we wouldn't have a mental health epidemic, a diabetes epidemic, a heart disease epidemic, an obesity epidemic in this country. So, that is what is common. And I like to show people what is optimal. And I think that is, that's an important distinction to make.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like if you continue to listen to your body, like you said, we are talking about communicating with your body, despite going to the doctor and the doctor says you're fine, but you're feeling, no, this is not kosher, this is not optimal me. You need to keep searching. You need to keep looking.
There's no such thing as normal diarrhea. There's no such thing as normal anxiety, normal depression, normal psoriasis, normal, panic attacks.
Real terms or?
Well, the people, doctors say, oh, this is normal. Oh, this is fine. Oh, you're okay. And the reality is that's not true. Our bodies are meant to be, in balance. We are meant to, wake up with energy. We are meant to be able to go to sleep at night. And so our bodies are communicating with us every single day. And there is an inherent wisdom in our bodies. And that wisdom is not being taught by a lot of our medical professionals for a lot of reasons that we probably don't have, time to get into right now. But, if your doctor is saying things like, oh, you're a mom. All moms are tired and anxious and have no
Stress,
libido. Like,
too many kids
I
to take care
that's
of.
just not true, right? Like, there are plenty of moms that have lots of energy, that have a healthy sex drive, that that feel good. And the reality is that when a lot of times my clients, the reason that I went back to school to be able to run my own labs is I'd be working with my clients and I would say, hey, I'm not a doctor. But this is really reminding me of like autoimmune disease. Go ahead, thyroid, something going on with your thyroid.
Right.
Have your doctor run these 5 thyroid labs. I want to see, TSH, T3, T4, reverse T3, reverse T4, thyroid antibodies. They would come back to me, and oftentimes the doctor would flat out refuse. They say, oh, we're just going to run, we're not going to run this lab. You don't need this lab. Or they will run one of the labs,
Not
TSH,
all
right?
5.
Yeah, they will run the thyroid stimulating hormone, not that whole panel of like 6 or 7 metrics.
What do
Or
they
they'll just say, they'll run everything, and then they'll say, oh, you're in range, you're normal, your labs look good.
back to normal again?
But
What do
what's
they have
happening,
again? Find
with
the
that?
solution though.
Well, the solution is to educate yourself. So
Mm.
here's a piece that's going to educate your clients. When you run labs and your doctor says everything is normal, right? You have all of these symptoms that are not normal, and you go to your doctor, they run the labs and they say your labs are normal. You can say, okay, you're using clinical ranges. What are optimal ranges for a woman of my age or a man of my age?
Mm.
So when's the last time, Roberta, that you went to the doctor and asked to run labs when you felt fantastic? Probably never, right?
No.
You go to the doctor when you feel like crap,
feel
and
like
then the
something is
doctor will run
wrong.
labs.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there are 2 main companies, diagnostic companies, Quest and CPL. They will take the blood sample, and then they aggregate all of that information, all of the results.
Mm.
So all of the men that have, taken this lab, all of the women that have taken this lab, and then they give you a statistical range, an average, and they say, this is in range. It's just telling you what's common. It's telling you what is in range for an ever increasingly unhealthy population. Well, do you want to be compared to, somebody that
healthy people and be told I'm okay because I'm as unhealthy as them?
you want to be compared to what's optimal? What is optimal for a, 40 some odd year old woman? What is optimal for a 35-year-old man? And so that's the difference. These ranges are massive. I use functional ranges, which are smaller. They tell you what's optimal. And outside of those functional ranges, you can have symptoms in a clinical range for 10, 15, 20 years before you get clinically diagnosed with hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Well, in the meantime, you've lived suffering for 15 years. So what can your listeners do? The reality is your body is communicating with you every single day. So the first thing that you need to do is just listen. Take a breath. How do you feel in the morning before things get crazy? Do you have good energy? Are you hungry first thing in the morning? Can you wait until 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to eat? None of this is normal. Do you go to bed absolutely exhausted, so tired, but absolutely wired and you can't go to sleep? This is your body telling you that something is wrong. Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? Do you have irritable bowel? Do you have skin issues, cystic acne? Is your hair falling out? Your body is whispering to you, and you have to listen.
And do
And
you
then
sometimes eat healthy? Sorry, Maja, to interrupt you. Do you sometimes eat healthy? You eat salad, you eat your greens and everything, but your waistline keeps increasing, and you're wondering, but I'm doing all the right things.
yeah. And then I would say, work with a professional. And for me, I think that getting data around what's happening in your body is invaluable. I no longer work with clients unless they're willing to run labs with me, because they've tried all the other stuff. They've tried eating less, moving more, some random vitamins, like they've tried and that didn't work. And so if you have tried something over and over again and it still hasn't given you the solution, then you need to find a different solution. And I believe working with a professional that can run some basic labs and help paint a picture of like what's going on in your body is the most effective and efficient way to move forward. Because without that information, you're kind of just like throwing stuff at a wall
And hope
and
it works and
seeing
hope it
you
sticks.
seeing what works.
Mm.
And the reality is a lot of my clients have done like a lot of trial and error. They started diets, stopped diets, they've been working at this for a very long time. They're exhausted, they're over it, right? They are kind of on their last string, and they need some forward momentum, some progress. And the reality is if you're working with a professional that is good at their job, you'll start seeing results very, very quickly. I have clients that are like, man, I made this one change and I lost 5 pounds in 1 week. I'm like, yeah, it's not supposed to be hard. It can
Right.
be easy.
Because the body, we've been told for decades that the body has its own wisdom, it has its own healing mechanisms, etc. So, in conclusion, based on what you're saying today, the gut health and the whole body composition is the reason we have burnout, we have stress, we are exhausted, chronic fatigue,
Yeah, we
because the
we
cells
are
themselves are tired.
it's that's what the gut health is, one component of it. Really, it comes to burnout is due to stress.
Mm-hmm.
And once we understand that there are three kinds of stress: physical stress, biochemical stress, and emotional stress, we will understand that our body's natural self-defense mechanism is not meant to, like, we were meant to, think about it like we were meant to, see a woolly mammoth, once, and we're meant to turn on our flight, our sympathetic nervous system. We're meant to run away from the woolly mammoth or the saber-toothed tiger, and then that goes away. But today we are under stress 24 hours a day while we sleep, while we're awake. And that stress is what is kind of creating this burnout. And it is possible to live life in a different way. And you're responsible for that, right? Like at the end of the day, there is no knight in shining armor. Nobody's going to like swoop in. You have to do the work, but you can work smarter than versus harder. And that's where working with a professional is, I think, the more efficient, the easier, way to go.
And tailor make a solution for you specifically and
Of
not the
course.
mainstream eat this and do this and
Yeah, of course. If somebody is telling you how you should be working out, what you should be eating without understanding, for example, whether you are in a dysfunctional stage of adrenal function, then I would turn around and run away, right? If you are, for example, tired and wired or completely crashed when it comes to adrenal health, and somebody prescribes HIIT workouts, hot yoga, CrossFit for you, that's going to be incredibly damaging. And then also, what time of day should you be working out? That also, right? So if somebody is telling you this is what you should do to work out, this is what you should do to eat, without understanding the roadmap and kind of the blueprint of your body, I would turn around and run, because more than likely you've already done that. And what got you here isn't going to get you there. And there is a body that has energy, that can sleep, that wakes up refreshed, that has a strong sex drive, that has clear skin, that has, daily consistent bowel movements. I mean, this is the
and a
kind of
zestful
body.
life. I think that we've completely lost the zest for life because
Yeah.
we're tired and we're stressed, and we have to continue being entrepreneurs, being professionals and working. We have to take care of ourselves and our families. So this is the kind of work we really need to do in order to be
How
in
you do
optimal
that
health.
matters. And, you know, you're not going to be very helpful to your family if you are riddled with depression and anxiety and you can't leave the house and you don't have the energy to like run your business. At the end of the day, we have one body, one life, and we can't really sail to our final destination if we're sailing on a rusty kind of wrecked ship, right? We want to have an intact hull, a good engine, a good motor, and good navigation skills so that we can get from point A to point B, with style and grace.
Words of wisdom from Maja Miller. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing such gems with us. Before you go, where can we find you? Please share all your socials because this is a very important conversation.
Yeah, I'm not really big on social. You can find me on Facebook. You can message me there.
Okay.
You can go to iopnextlevel.com, and there you're going to be able to set up some time to actually speak with me. We'll get on a Zoom call. I'll ask you a couple of questions just so that I kind of know what's going on ahead of time. But I like to be really accessible to my clients. Sometimes you just want to like hop on the phone and talk to somebody and be like, hey, here's what's going on. Can you help me? So going to iopnextlevel.com is where you can schedule some time to chat with me. And Facebook, from a social media perspective, is the place where I've got a lot of posts, a lot of knowledge that I share on Facebook, and that's just Maja Miller, and it's Maja with a J. So I would love to chat with everybody. I'm obviously passionate about what I do, and at the end of the day, I love helping people. Like what's really important to me is that people are safe, seen, and heard, and you can't be any of those things if you feel like crap in your own body. So, the world has a lot of things that we need to fix. And I kind of place my bets on like amazing entrepreneurs and innovators and entrepreneurs to be able to make, a positive impact in the world. And like I said, you can't do that if you don't feel good in your own body.
Constantly tired and burned out. Obviously not. Yes. Your work is very necessary, Maja. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I will drop all the website and the Facebook details on our show notes so that we can continue to contact you.
Thank you. So nice chatting with you.
This was a wonderful conversation as well. That was Maja Miller, the diagnostic nutrition practitioner and health coach, to help us today with all that we need to understand when it comes to why we are stressed, burned out, and sick, constantly tired all the time. Don't forget to subscribe, give a rating and a review, and we'll be with you next time.